Hello, everyone. It's your boy Jeff, and I'm back with another segment in my irregularly scheduled series called the Stephen King Reading Project. So, welcome, fellow travelers along the path of the beam. Today, I've got three books to show and talk about, and a few future plans with this project, and something that you might find interesting, especially if you're a Dark Tower fan. But I'll do that at the end. First up is The Long Walk, written under the Richard Bachman pseudonym and collected here in the Bachman books. Originally read this when this collection came out, which was in like 85, I believe. I first bought it in softcover. I ended up repurchasing it in hardcover. And I remember The Long Walk being this odd little story about these guys who were involved in this super marathon walk where the winner got whatever it is that they desired, apparently. we That part's kept kind of vague, but it seemed like an odd little story, and it stuck in my mind for some reason. So when I did this, when I started this project, I put The Long Walk on the list, and I reread it. It's not very long. It didn't take me very long to get through. But that does kind of it does kind of fool you, because the story itself is a bit of a grind, which I think is kind of the point. You know, it starts off with 100 contestants in this walk, and you just go. You just start walking, and you have to keep up a certain pace. And if you fall below that pace, you get a warning. And the only way to get rid of that warning is to keep the pace up for a certain amount of time, which I think was an hour or 2 hours. But yeah, you get 3 warnings in a 24-hour period, or maybe not a 24-hour period. You just get 3 warnings in general, and if you don't get rid of them the 4th time, you get shot. So out of 100 contestants, only one person is going to win, and only one person is going to live. So just by entering and participating in the contest, you're basically giving yourself a death sentence, which is kind of twisted in its own way. But as we get to know, these characters, I'll hold the book up while I talk. As we get to know these characters, you see they're pretty messed up people anyway. Nobody just lightly went, oh, I think I'll just get in a long walk and da 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 da. It's not like that. So part of the story is that. Part of the story is just watching them try to trick their minds to keep their bodies going. I mean, there's no stopping for nothing. Not even to go to the bathroom. If you do, you get a warning. So it's something you have to do quick, I guess. And you just keep walking and walking and walking, uphill, downhill, through towns. I mean, people cheer them on like it was, like they were rock stars. It's really kind of strange. And allusions are made by King to this, being like a dystopian type of society sometime in the future. He keeps that part vague, just like he keeps the ending kind of vague. I mean, I'm not going to spoil it, even though it's a very old story, but you pretty much know who's going to win. But when you get to the end, you never really see him. There's like no finish line for him to cross. So it's just one of those things. It's an interesting concept. I would love to see this made into a movie. I know Fuego mentioned this on his Hail the Stephen King channel about the different plans that were in the works. I don't know if they still are in the works to make this into a movie. I think it would be pretty interesting to see how they could do it. But as a story, it was okay. It was decent. Like I said, I think the whole point of it is to kind of like grind the reader down a little bit so you feel slightly like these walkers, you know? So it was good. I'm glad I reread it. I'll probably return to this collection. I'll probably read the Running Man again at some point down the road. But for now, the Long Walk is the one that stuck in my mind that I wanted to reread the most. So that's what I did. Then we continue the alternating that I've been doing with Joe Hill. We wrap that part up with the last Joe Hill book that I had yet to read at this point, Nosferatu. It's a pretty big book. It's over 600 pages. This is a first edition, but it's a library copy, and it's in one piece, but you can tell it's seen a hard life as a library copy. Again, the way that the things that I said last time talking about Joe Hill and his stories ring true with this one. And again, it's a very easy read. It's a page turner. There's a lot of good action in it. There's some interesting concepts. Charlie Manx is one of Joe Hill's more memorable villains compared to what I've read previously. And overall, I really enjoyed this book. It took me a little while to get through. Like I said, it's a longer read, but it's just the back cover here. But just like with the other Hill books that I've been reading, you know, like Horns and Heart-Shaped Box and that, the main character, her name is Vic. That's her. Everyone just calls her Vic, even though her name is Victoria. Gets the holy hell beat out of her. She gets punched, kicked, thrown around, dang near run over, just shot at, beat up. She gets abused in this book. Joe Hill is kind of sadistic in that regard. I'm really coming to that opinion. All that said, like I said, it was really enjoyable. Vic is, just to give you a brief overview of the story. Vic has the ability, we don't know why or how, but she is one of, I guess, a few people around that has the ability to do something special. In her case, she's able to conjure a dilapidated old bridge called the Shortway Bridge. And if she's trying to find something, or if she's trying to go somewhere, or if she's trying to be led to a place to find a person or an object or something, all she has to do is think about it. And as she was riding across the bridge, at first on a bicycle when she was younger, by the time she got to the other side, the location was different. And that bridge is parked right in the middle of whatever area she is. Like early on in the book, she's trying to find a bracelet, or a photograph. Sorry, a photograph. So she kind of like puts herself in a little bit of a trance as she's riding, and then she sees the bridge up ahead, rides through it, and she came out on the other end inside her school. So the end of the bridge was parked at the end of a hallway in her school. And she went to her locker, and after some digging around, she was able to find the picture that she was missing. It's like that. So as she becomes an adult, as time passes in the book, she's able to do the same thing on a motorcycle, a Triumph, which must be what Joe Hill likes, because you can see in the author photo he's on astride a Triumph right there. But yeah, she's able to do it. Charlie Manx is able to do it too, with his car, a 1938 Rolls-Royce Wraith. Pretty rare and expensive car, but he's able to drive it down roads that don't exist on our human plane. And yeah, he's able to go to a place called Christmas Land, which is where he's taken all kinds of different young children, abducted them, basically drained off their life energy and changed them into these minions that live in Christmas Land. So, like I said, not a lot of explanations given to like how all this stuff works. It just does for these people, and you just kind of come to accept it after a while. But Vic is the only person who had ever survived being abducted by Charlie Manx when she was a kid. So it haunts her, through her life, and she becomes mentally unstable, heavy drug user, alcohol drinker, and she's pretty messed up in the head as she becomes an adult. Comes to find that Charlie Manx is not dead as she thought he was, and he comes for her and her son, who he does end up abducting, and they go away to Christmas Land. Pretty good story. Like I said, a lot of action. The ending was actually pretty good. So far, Joe's been able to end his books a lot better than his dad. He's having a better track record in that regard. It held my interest. I was a little hesitant because, big books like these, it's not something that it's going to be a time commitment for me because I'm not necessarily a fast reader, but I didn't think about that at all as I was reading this. It was very enjoyable, liked it a lot. And if you wanted to dive into the Joe Hill universe and you wanted a big book to get you there, this would be your choice. So, yeah, this now completes my Joe Hill catalog read. I've got them all. I've read them all. The only thing I haven't read are his comics. Yeah, I'm on the fence about that because I collected comics for like 42 years and I just quit recently. So I'm not sure I'll ever go into the Joe Hill's comics, but as far as any books of his that come out, I am there because I'm a fan of his too. Okay. Now, as I mentioned last time, I'm going back onto the path of the beam. I'm starting the journey again, and I'm rereading the Dark Tower books. Now, at this point, I just finished this book today. This is book 1, The Gunslinger. My plan is to read the first 4 because I remember enjoying those the most. I plan on reading Wind Through the Keyhole, Little Sisters of Illyria, which is a story that appears in the Everything's Eventual story collection. Maybe book 5. We'll see if I'm too burned out on the Dark Tower by the time I get to book 5, because I know book 5 is a bit of a slog too, and it's a big one. So we'll see. That's on the maybe list, but for sure, the first 4 plus the other 2 shorter works that I mentioned are on the slate, and there won't be any switching off with other authors or other books. I'm just going to read them all back to back because here's where I get into my little diatribe on the Dark Tower. I was one of the people who came across the Dark Tower in real time when I started following King in 79, when I first started reading Salem's Lot and picking up all of his other books and reading them voraciously. I'd heard that there was a collection called The Dark Tower, or I think it was just called The Dark Tower back then, and eventually it became The Gunslinger. This is the revised edition from 2003. I also have the original softcover edition. This was put out in 1988. The original hardcover from 1982, you can't touch for less than probably $1,000, I would think. I haven't seen it online anywhere for less than that, unless it's a really beat up, shitty copy, and even those are going for like 700-800. But I debated on what to do because I wanted to have all of the Dark Tower in hardcover. So even though this is the expanded edition, it's really not expanded by a whole lot. King himself mentions in the introduction, or one of the introductions, that he added about 9,000 words, which, came out to be like, 30 pages extra of material. So of the 5 stories that are collected in here, each of them have been tweaked a little bit or extended some to kind of make them fit in with later books. Because I did do some direct comparison while I was reading this with this and tracking down, where I was at in the story. And there is some more detail in this book. I'm not sure how much it adds. Like some stories, like the Slow Mutants, was about 10 pages longer in here than it was in here. But again, he mentions, Roland mentions Susan a lot more in his flashback thoughts, and she's called Susan Delgado instead of just Susan, the way she's just barely mentioned in this version. So, King does a basically a good job with the revising and expanding. I still have mixed emotions about it because, but I understand, it took him 33 years to complete the Dark Tower. So wanting to go back to the beginning because, some of the details are pretty spare in this version compared to this. I get it. It didn't really affect my enjoyment either way. I still loved it. I still love this book. Especially like the first story where where Roland shoots up the town of Tull. That was pretty cool. But yeah, I don't think he does it with any of the other books after this one. But I think because this was just a collection of short stories, that, like I said, were kind of on the vaguer side, I could see where he wanted to make it fit in more with what comes later. So there's a little more foreshadowing in this one, a little more updating details. If you only have this one, you don't really need to have this one, or vice versa. Both of them will get you to the same place. But because I'm psycho and I always wanted to have all the Dark Tower books on hardcover, that's why I got this. If I just wanted to read the Dark Tower again, I would have just stuck with this and it would have been fine. So, take that for what you will. Basically, whatever you can find cheaper, get. Unless you're like me and you have to have it in hardcover, get this one because it's going to be way cheaper than trying to find this one in hardcover. Believe me. So yeah, just finished book 1 today. Plan on starting book 2 immediately, probably tomorrow morning. And those are recently reissued hardcovers as well. And I'll the thing I also debated about is whether or not to keep my soft covers. And I'm gonna, especially this one, because this is the unrevised version and it is different, like I said, than this one. But the other reason I'm keeping this is because there's illustrations in this one that are not in the revised hardcover. It's got, like for every story, there's an illustration in color from Michael Whalen. And, some of them are even 2-page ones. And it's like that in book 2, book 3, and book 4 also. So even though there's no change in the story in the other books, I'm still keeping my soft covers just for that reason. So that's my plan with that. The other thing that I'm thinking about doing is grouping all of the Dark Tower books together in one group. The way I have it now, basically my hardcover collection is in publication order. So the Dark Towers are scattered, among the collection as they were released. But I think because I've got, hardcovers and soft covers, I think I'm just gonna, we're talking about like almost 12 or 13 books here, all told. So I think I'm just going to pull them all, group them together, put all the hardcovers together, put all the soft covers at the end, and have a massive Dark Tower collection. Speaking of the Dark Tower, I found, if you go to michaelwhalen.com, and I think one or two of you did when I posted this picture on the Stephen King group, I found this on his website. It's actually the illustration for, you can actually find it in this book. It's the illustration for the first story on the first page. So, and it's printed on very nice paper, very thick paper. And of course it has the famous opening line of the very first Dark Tower story. The man in black fled across the desert and the gunslinger followed. Signed by Michael Whalen. This only cost me $25, and it's among the cheapest things on his site, which is pretty cool. Most of the other color illustrations that I showed you that are in this book are available there as prints, but they are much more expensive. But because my King collection lives here, you can see I have It Chapter 2 poster there. I'll probably frame this. I have to go to either Hobby Lobby or Michael's or something and find a nice frame for it, hopefully with some nice matting, and put this in a nice frame and hang it with the collection. So for those of you who might be interested in this kind of thing, if you're a big Dark Tower fan and you want to have something to hang on your wall, michaelwhalen.com is the place to go. And he also included this, it's just a card, which is looks kind of familiar. Actually, looks like it's from 1991. It's just a blank card, but if you had a Dark Tower fan in your life and you wanted to send them a nice note, this would be something pretty cool. Just included as a freebie with an envelope, so that was nice. So yeah. So my plans is to read all of those Dark Tower books, and then beyond that, may take a break from King for a while. Probably going to read some other things, but it probably won't be for too long, and I'm going to keep alternating King as I go, because there's still plenty more beyond the Dark Tower that I want to read. And so I'm looking forward to that. Pretty anxious about the Dark Tower. Oh, getting back to what I was saying. I was reading these books in real time. So every delay that was between every book, which was, I think book 2 came out like the year after they issued the soft cover of book 1. And then it was like, that was in 87. And then book 3 came out in 1993. And then book 4 came out in 97. And then we really had to wait a long time to get to book 5. It was like 7 or 8 years. So I forgot about a lot of details in between each book, obviously, because I'd been reading so many other things and living my life and doing all this other stuff. So every time I came back to the next part of the story, I kind of remembered stuff, but I wasn't about to go back and reread everything. So now, as I'm going to reread them all back to back to back, hoping it makes the story flow better, hoping it's much more enjoyable. And I'm anxious to see what my opinion is going to be by the time I'm through. and to see if it's going to change my opinion on the Dark Tower as a whole. Still not reading book 6 and 7 though. But who knows? Maybe after the time if I'm inspired enough to continue with book 5 and I'm still liking it, maybe I'll give book 6 another chance. We'll see. But that's my plan. It's probably going to take up a good part of time for me. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for following me down the path of the beam. And long days and pleasant nights. So until next time, peace. Your boy Jeff, fellow gunslinger. See you next time.